I bought the land because I wanted peace. That was the whole idea. 2 acres of silence, sun, and sovereignty. The dirt cracked underfoot, heat rising like a mirage. The wind carried a purity that city air had long forgotten, and the horizon stretched empty and infinite. No HOA, no neighbors peering over fences, just freedom. Or so I thought. The first knock came on a Sunday afternoon. The kind of knock that shatters the calm, sharp against the stillness of the land. I was down by the wellhead checking the pressure valves when I saw her. Karen Blake. Perfectly buttoned blouse, clipboard in hand, hair like spun gold, stubborn as steel. I knew her type instantly, the bureaucratic predator disguised in suburban polish. "Mr. Vitter?" she asked, voice rehearsed, smooth as varnish. "I'm the president of the Sun Mesa Ridge HOA. I smiled faintly, the kind that warned, "I don't care." She handed me a folder. Voluntary membership offer. Buzzwords spilled across the pages. Community harmony, aesthetic standards, preferred vendor access. A manifesto of control wrapped in politeness. I didn't bother pretending. "I'm not interested," I said. She blinked like I'd asked her to drink radiator fluid. Well, reduced tax assessments, coordinated emergency services, architectural review committee. I cut her off. "Karen, I have my own well, my own septic, my own underground power. This property isn't in your HOA and it never will be." Her smile faltered. Something flickered behind her eyes. Calculation, not frustration. She nodded, tight-lipped, and walked off, leaving an unspoken promise behind. For a week, nothing happened. Too quiet. And then one night, the power blinked out. Just a momentary flicker, but enough to disable my backup systems and plunge the house into darkness. I grabbed my flashlight, boots, jacket, and stepped outside. The junction box, west wall, steel, keypad, password protected. I opened it. One of the main feeders had been cleanly cut. Not chewed, not torn. Precise, deliberate. Tools, knowledge, and intent. Sabotage. I didn't panic. I repaired it, changed the code, and installed a motion-activated camera. 2 nights later, the camera was black. Gray paint smeared the lens. Whoever did this knew the blind spots, moved with confidence. A warning? A game? I didn't know yet, but I understood one thing clearly. This was personal. Over the next week, the attacks continued. Blacked out cameras, cut wires, frozen footage. I called Jake, a friend, ex-military, now a grid technician. He examined the sabotage and whispered what I already suspected. This isn't random. Someone is trained. Someone is deliberate. Karen. There was no one else. The HOA president with access, motive, and obsession. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was waging quiet war. I prepared. Infrared cameras, lithium batteries, hidden drives, tamper-proof enclosures, reinforced steel, Faraday mesh, motion triggers, and the trap. Not violent, just a precise, mechanical. Deterrent, snap arm, tension spring, embedded vibration sensors. A warning, a lesson, a line drawn in the sand. Days passed. I fortified, observed, waited. Then, a note appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Thick, glossy paper. Resistance to community order is selfish and dangerous. Voluntary compliance ensures harmony. Final offer. Lavender perfume lingered. Karen. That moment I understood the scope. She was systematic, strategic. This was soft tyranny. Rules as weapons. I upgraded sensors, added microphones, triggered early recordings. Every approach, every tool movement, recorded. I prepared for the inevitable, and it came. 2:43 a.m. Vibration alert pinged, boots on, jacket in hand. Keys and sidearm ready, not for use, but for readiness. Jake and I moved in silence toward the western slope, utility shed looming in moonlight. Shadows thick. She was there, crouched, cutters in hand, flashlight slicing the dark. Her SUV idled behind bushes, engine ticking heat. Snap. The trap triggered. Metallic crack. Shriek. She fell, hand pinched, dirt smeared, composure shattered. The security flood hit, eyes wide, hair disheveled, panic raw. "You set a trap. That's assault," she screamed. "You tried to cut a live line," I said calmly. Jake secured the cutters. I checked the camera, every moment captured, time-stamped, uploaded. The siege, the sabotage, the snap, the shriek. Evidence complete. By dawn, law enforcement arrived. Video reviewed. Karen stunned. No argument could mask the reality. Arrested. HOA chaos exposed. Federal inquiries begun. And that, I realized, was only the beginning. Morning light spilled over the desert, washing the land in pale gold, but the calm was gone. Karen Blake's defeat at my trap had set off a cascade, and I could feel the tension hum like electricity through the air. The HOA was crumbling from the inside, but their reach still lingered like a shadow over every lot. By midday, a detective from the sheriff's office called. Cordial, professional, but with an undertone of caution. Karen had filed a complaint, claims of premeditated violence and assault. I remained calm. I had footage, schematics, witness statements. Jake had seen everything. The law was on my side. Within 24 hours, civil papers arrived. Karen, through a flamboyant law firm straight out of a TV ad, accused me of negligence, emotional trauma, and mechanical injury. She ignored the wires, the sabotage, the 3 previous attempts. Her narrative was narrow, like a camera lens focused only on her bruised hand. I forwarded everything to Linda Calderon, my attorney, sharp and fearless, the kind who'd once taken a mining company to bankruptcy. She scanned the documents, then smiled, the kind of grin that hinted at inevitability. "She's screwed," she said. That was just the beginning. A plain manila envelope arrived at my P.O. box, unmarked, with a single word scrawled across the flap, "For you." Inside were internal HOA documents, budget approvals, and email chains with titles like Outlier Lot Strategy and Nolan v. Resistance Plan. They were discussing me as a threat, a defect, a problem to be neutralized. The documents painted a damning picture. Coordinated, sanctioned, and systemic. Karen wasn't acting alone. Her power was institutionalized. Tyler Blake, her son, had slipped the files anonymously, a whistleblower from inside the kingdom. His note read simply, "Sorry about my mother. She's always been like this. Do what you need to do." Linda reviewed the files and immediately initiated counterclaims. $280,000 for damages, property repair, security upgrades, and the psychological toll of months under targeted sabotage. But the real shock came from the external agencies, the county sheriff's office, state auditors, IRS, Federal Housing Oversight Authority, all now watching. Karen's narrative crumbled in real time. Press releases portrayed her as a victim, yet the evidence was overwhelming. Her attacks on my property, the prior incidents, her misuse of HOA funds. The media caught wind, and the footage of her captured by my cameras went viral. A local reporter ran a segment titled HOA or Organized Harassment, replaying every moment. The night, the snap, the scream, the fall. Public opinion shifted like a desert wind, heavy and undeniable. It didn't stop there. Other victims came forward. Dennis and Margaret Payne, 3 lots down, reported sabotage of irrigation systems and threats over trash bins. Pastor Glenn Romero revealed HOA interference with his chapel signage. Patterns emerged. This wasn't isolated harassment, it was coordinated oppression, an abuse of authority masked as community enforcement. The county launched administrative reviews, and Linda filed a formal complaint with the Nevada Department of Community Associations. Internal HOA meeting transcripts, provided by a retired board member, exposed organized neighborhood normalization excursions, budgeted spying missions targeting me. Tyler's documents detailed off-the-books expenditures, $20,000 paid to a shell LLC tied to Karen's construction firm. It became racketeering. Not a petty HOA vendetta, systemic, calculated, financially supported, and strategically executed. The Federal Housing Oversight Authority and Nevada Attorney General's office stepped in. Even the IRS began inquiries. Karen's empire was collapsing, one revelation at a time. Tyler's whistleblower files acted as the keystone, exposing her construction firm, Blake and Haven Developments, seeking expansion into adjacent lots, including mine. The sabotage wasn't about rules. It was about profit, control, and erasing obstacles. Federal investigators interviewed me, reviewed footage, and cross-verified financial records. The scale of Karen's abuse became undeniable. Sun Mesa Ridge HOA's internal governance was a facade. Every attack, every document, every obscure expense contributed to a web of coercion and intimidation. By the end of the week, Karen's complaint was dropped. Evidence showed her injuries were self-inflicted during unauthorized entry. Meanwhile, criminal investigations into tampering and sabotage intensified. The HOA tried to regroup, closed-door meetings, and public statements. Linda laughed. They had aligned themselves with a sinking ship while I held the anchor. The county prosecutor requested formal interviews. The narrative shifted from local HOA drama to federal oversight. Tyler's anonymous documents, now validated, triggered comprehensive investigations into fraud, unauthorized surveillance, and misuse of power. Other residents corroborated coordinated harassment, and the net widened. HOA oversight bodies, the state, and federal agencies converged on the small desert neighborhood. Meanwhile, the media frenzy intensified. Channel 5 ran stories, viral clips circulated on social media, and online communities dissected every moment. Public outrage became pressure on the authorities. Citizens demanded transparency, state audits, and systemic reform of HOA governance. Through it all, I remained steady, observing, documenting, and preparing. The trap had only been the beginning. Karen underestimated the resilience of someone who knew their land, their rights, and their technology. Every move she made exposed more than intent. It revealed the mechanics of her coercion, her overreach, and her disregard for law. By the time federal investigators arrived, I had mapped every detail: trap mechanisms, surveillance, documentation of prior incidents, whistleblower testimony, and internal HOA corruption. The story had moved beyond local drama. It had become a case study, a lesson in power, control, and the limits of suburban tyranny. The courthouse smelled like bleach and bureaucracy, sharp and sterile. I walked in, briefcase in hand, files stacked neatly inside. Karen Blake was there, 3 seats over, a shadow of the confident HOA queen I'd first met. Her pastel blazer sagged, hair flat, signature scarf nowhere in sight. Gone was the carefully curated composure. The aura of control had slipped from her shoulders like sand through fingers. Linda Calderon sat beside me, her notes meticulously organized, eyes sharp. The judge, a woman whose patience felt as immovable as desert rock, called the court to order. Cameras and reporters were barred, too many federal agencies involved, but transcripts would be published. The stakes were immense: premeditated vandalism, unlawful entry, sabotage, wire fraud, attempted coercion, conspiracy, all under the umbrella of HOA overreach. Linda opened with the footage. Every second, time-stamped, undeniable. Karen creeping in the night with bolt cutters, caught in the trap, her scream echoing in the recording. The jury leaned forward. The raw, unfiltered documentation left no room for misinterpretation. Next came Tyler Blake's whistleblower documents. Internal emails, meeting minutes, off-the-books expenditures, coded messages, all corroborated by forensic analysis and the chain of custody. Karen's defense tried every tactic. They painted me as paranoid, uncooperative, a man with an engineering background uniquely capable of danger. They attempted to question the intent behind the trap, arguing it was excessive. Linda countered calmly, systematically. The trap caused no injury beyond startling. It was preventive, and each act by Karen had been deliberate sabotage. Experts testified. Zoning specialists confirmed my property predated the HOA charter by years. Attempts to annex or influence it without consent would have been illegal. Financial auditors detailed shell companies, misappropriated funds, kickbacks, and budget manipulation. Every narrative Karen built crumbled under documented evidence. By midweek, the jury's posture shifted visibly. They absorbed the story not as HOA drama, but as a tale of systematic abuse, corruption, and criminal overreach. Federal oversight teams began taking notes in the gallery, nodding at the connections between HOA finances and Karen's personal business interests. Then came the emotional testimony. Tyler Blake recounted the pressure, the obsession, and his decision to whistleblow. His words added human gravity to the forensic and financial evidence. The story of sabotage, intimidation, and coordinated harassment became undeniable. Karen fidgeted, tried to interrupt, to assert authority, but the courtroom no longer belonged to her. Linda summarized, "This is not property management. This is empire building. A small HOA has been weaponized against a lawful landowner for profit and control. Each act, each expense, each motion was part of a coordinated strategy." The courtroom fell silent. Even Karen's lawyer struggled to regain composure. Verdict day arrived. The room felt tense, like the desert before a storm. Karen Blake was found guilty on all counts: premeditated vandalism, trespassing with intent to sabotage, wire fraud, coercion, and conspiracy. Sentencing was severe: 3 years federal custody, $95,000 restitution to cover damages, legal costs, and psychological stress. Her construction firm faced IRS scrutiny, and all HOA charters were dissolved by the court due to gross misuse of funds and criminal conspiracy. The county-appointed trustee board assumed control of Sun Mesa Ridge, Karen's former property, was sold at auction to a trust corporation. I managed quietly through a side LLC. No fireworks, no fanfare, just clean resolution. A granite slab marked the boundary. Beyond this point begins common sense. Months later, I stood in Phoenix at the annual private land rights conference, holding the modified breaker box and detailing the trap mechanism. Audience members, engineers, property owners, legal professionals listened intently. Laughter and murmurs of admiration rippled through the hall as I explained, "If they touch what doesn't belong to them and it bites back, that's not an accident. That's a lesson." Back home, Sun Mesa Ridge settled. Tyler Blake launched Block Watchdog, a nonprofit promoting HOA transparency. Other residents returned to their lots, free from harassment. Online, the story had become legendary. Videos went viral, memes circulated, and public discussion sparked reforms in HOA oversight across the state. The granite marker remained, silent and resolute, a boundary line between tyranny and personal sovereignty, a reminder that meticulous preparation, documentation, and perseverance could counter even the most aggressive power structures. The story had grown beyond a personal battle. It became a cautionary tale, a symbol of accountability, and a testament to the law-abiding citizens' ability to defend their rights. Karen's era of control had ended, not with violence, but with evidence, strategy, and the persistence of someone who refused to back down. News of the case spread like wildfire. Channel 5 ran a primetime segment titled HOA or Organized Harassment. The footage of Karen Blake caught at my breaker box mid-scream was shown in full detail. Social media exploded. View counts skyrocketed into the millions. The thumbnail, a crude animated depiction of Karen flung backward with cartoon smoke trailing, became an instant meme. Comments ranged from outrage at HOA overreach to admiration for precise lawful retaliation. Unexpectedly, other residents came forward. Dennis and Margaret Payne, living just 3 lots down, revealed their own harassment: irrigation systems sabotaged, baseless fines for trivial infractions. Pastor Glenn Romero spoke of HOA scrutiny over his chapel signage. Each account reinforced the pattern of systematic, coordinated intimidation. Their courage inspired others, creating a wave of community testimony that further solidified the narrative of abuse. The county launched an administrative review. Linda filed a formal complaint with the Nevada Department of Community Associations. Internal documents revealed that Karen had approved neighborhood surveillance and normalization excursions, specifically targeting my property. The HOA had budgeted for what amounted to organized spying. Tyler Blake's whistleblower files, coupled with resident accounts, painted a picture of a well-planned, aggressive effort to control and intimidate non-compliant property owners. Financial forensics revealed more shocking truths. Off-book expenses, secret consultants, and inflated vendor invoices linked directly to Karen's construction firm. One payment had been traced to fast-track zoning approvals. Every expenditure, every coded memo, every unexplained transaction pointed to deliberate manipulation for personal gain. This was no longer about petty HOA rules. It was systemic, illegal, and orchestrated. Federal oversight followed swiftly. Investigators from the Nevada Attorney General's Office, IRS representatives, and the Federal Housing Oversight Authority arrived in succession. Each agency scrutinized the HOA's books, communications, and internal policies. The once seemingly trivial HOA had drawn multi-level federal attention, exposing a web of misappropriation, intimidation, and regulatory violations. Meanwhile, the media coverage intensified. YouTube compilations, Reddit threads, and TikTok animations highlighted every critical moment. The sabotage, the trap, the arrest. Public sentiment overwhelmingly favored personal property rights and accountability. Petitions demanding statewide HOA audits gained traction. The community, long resigned to passive compliance, began to mobilize. Awareness had turned into action. I continued documenting every step. Each piece of evidence, video footage, financial records, whistleblower files, was securely archived and shared with authorities. My goal wasn't vengeance. It was accountability. Karen's empire of coercion crumbled not by confrontation, but by methodical exposure. At home, life slowly returned to a semblance of peace. Tyler Blake relocated out of state, launching Block Watchdog, a nonprofit platform for reporting HOA abuses anonymously. Residents adjusted, reclaiming their properties and refusing to tolerate unlawful interference. My property, marked by the granite slab, stood as a symbol of resistance and self-determination. The courthouse drama concluded. Karen Blake faced federal sentencing, restitution, and investigation of her assets. Sun Mesa Ridge HOA was dissolved. A county-appointed trustee board assumed governance, ensuring transparency and lawful management. The era of intimidation had ended, replaced by oversight, accountability, and community empowerment. Months later, I spoke at the annual Private Land Rights Conference in Phoenix. I demonstrated the modified breaker box trap, explaining the principles of deterrence, recording, and mechanical consequence. The audience, engineers, property owners, legal experts, listened intently. Questions flooded in, hands raised for advice, strategy, and documentation tips. I explained, this isn't about violence. It's about preparation, evidence, and protection of what is rightfully yours. Laughter, nods, and applause followed. The story transcended my personal battle. It became a nationwide cautionary tale, symbolizing the importance of defending personal property rights against systemic overreach. Online, the legend of the Mousetrap HOA circulated endlessly, inspiring memes, discussion, and legal awareness. My granite marker remained a silent testament, a boundary line between tyranny and reason, reminding all who passed, private property. No clipboards beyond this point. Life settled. Jake continued to visit, sharing beers and stories from the porch. Tyler's nonprofit expanded, creating a transparent portal for property owners nationwide. Residents of the former HOA reclaimed control, living without fear of arbitrary fines, sabotage, or coercion. The media had immortalized the events, but beyond the spotlight, the true victory was community empowerment and the rule of law restored. And so, the desert returned to its silence, punctuated only by wind, wildlife, and the knowledge that careful planning, evidence, and perseverance could prevail against the most audacious abuse of power. Karen Blake's reign had ended, replaced by accountability, integrity, and respect for property rights. What started as a personal dispute had grown into a legend, a cautionary tale, and a victory for anyone who values law, reason, and fairness over unchecked authority. Hey there! If you're enjoying this story, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more amazing videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an update from my channel. Seriously, it only takes a second, and it really helps me bring you more interesting content. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and remember, subscribe now, so you're always part of our journey.